just in case you're interested, Saturday evening, I was in Champaign-Urbana. That's a little far away from here, right? A little far away from here. And then midday, we visited Bloomington. And then Naperville and... No, you guys. Busy. And tomorrow I'm off to New Jersey. Life of Sannyas. Busy. Now, it was a different topic in Champaign-Urbana, but it was, it will certainly touch on some of the same things. One of those same things is, what's the purpose of life? Like, why are we here? I mean, we're busy, right? I'm busy. And on this side is birth, and that side is death, and in between is life. And we're supposed to be doing something in that space. Oh, what's that something? Now, one of the things that most people want is happiness. Find happiness. And to find happiness, it's important to know who you are. Supposing you don't know who you are, and you want to find happiness, you can look in areas. This is not where you are, not who you are. So, finding the real me, that's where this topic comes from. And I don't know if you can catch it. See that man's feet right there? There's somebody standing in the middle. It's one of his things. He makes himself up in such a way that he wants to blend in with the background, and then they take photographs. So, like, where is he? And who is he? Finding the real me. Japanese man. When it comes to finding out who we really are, the real me, there's a sense of balancing between, sometimes we're more on one side than the other side. Sometimes we're more on the side of the mind. Sometimes we're more on the side of the heart. And a little bit of a tightrope to make the proper balance so we don't fall off. Today, there's a little heart up there, and the heart part generally becomes much smaller than the mechanical part of life and how we live our life and the atmosphere that we're brought up in and we're dealing with. The mechanics, the commercial, the corporate part. There's a very nice motivational speaker, kind of a sociologist, research worker person. Her name is Brené Brown. I've developed a little bit of appreciation for her. And one of the things that she teaches is on the authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we really are. Now, how much of our lives are lived based upon what we're supposed to be? A lot. And here's a little personal story. Once upon a time, I was a little kid. And as a little kid, I grew up in a Christian family. And so a little Christian boy does what little Christian boys do. I went to Sunday school. And at Sunday school, I heard about heaven. So I asked Mom and Dad, what's it like there? What do people do there, right? We're supposed to want to go there, right? So tell me a little bit about it. And they didn't have an answer. I mean, they said something, but it didn't satisfy my curiosity. So I went to the priest of our church. And I asked the priest of the church, and he didn't have an answer, but he didn't say, I don't know. He just didn't know. But we're supposed to want to go there, right? Heaven, it's a nice place. So after spinning out a little bit on that, I did what everyone else's little boys growing up in America are supposed to do, be successful. And be successful for a little boy growing up in America is basically three things. Do well in academics, reasonably well in your social life, and be good in sports. Little boy growing up in America. So I did that for a while, like 20 years. And then a little light went on, and some of those same questions started coming. And then I found myself, living a life that I was supposed to be without really knowing who I was. And it was uncomfortable. And more than uncomfortable. I felt cheated. I mean, I was a young kid in my generation. That's the emotion. What did I buy into? And what's it all about? And nobody knows, and nobody's encouraging me to know. They're encouraging me to be successful. Sound familiar? And what's success? You know what success is. I'll different versions, but do well in your academics. And then when you complete your academics, whatever level that is, you get a degree. When you get a degree, you go in the job market and see if you can find a nice job. When you get a nice job, then you consider a spouse, a wife or a husband, and then you get married, and then you get a house, and you have kids, and you have a car, and you have a bank balance, and you have taxes, and you have insurance, and you have, stuff. You do that for a while, and your kids grow up, and they need to go to college, and you do that for a while, and then they're gone, and then you get old, and everything's taken from you. And that's it. And that's life. Really? Really? That's it? So lots of people, they don't know what's, what goes in that space besides the material or what we're supposed to do. And I'll assume that you're here because you have, there's a little light that's on that says, there's something more than that. And I want to know what that something more than that is, please. And I want a genuine answer, and from some authority that knows and is living what they know. And then, but it has to be my experience. So here's another image that's showing the same thing. There's the blue ball in the midst of all these red balls, and how what's the authenticity of our individuality when we're trying to be who we really are. Now, all of this is conversation just to prompt or spark thoughtfulness, as opposed to, being a donkey and just doing what you're supposed to do and going after the carrot. And at the end of the day, you get the carrot and yummy, and next day comes another carrot. Another stage of maybe a big one or maybe a smaller one. Anyway, thoughtfulness, because the Sanskrit phrase is manishinam, that the spiritual life is for those who are thoughtful. So all of these kinds of prodding kind of remarks are meant to prompt thoughtfulness. Conformity is like poison to your soul, because all souls are not alike. They have something in common. There's eternality, knowledge, and bliss, but how the shape of that is very different for different individuals. So here's some nonconformists. You probably know this personality, Dattatreya. Dattatreya was a partial incarnation of Vishnu, And he has a little different body. He's got 3 heads, and hangs around with animals, and he plays a little din-din drum, and he's an avadhuta, or a nonconformist. He didn't follow the norms. Most people don't walk around like this. Or another incarnation of Vishnu was Lord Rishabdev. Rishabdev was the father of 100 sons, and his eldest son was named Bharat, after whom this planet's named Bharatvarsha, because he was such a prominent personality, Bharat, King Bharat. But Rishabdev, when he turned the kingdom over to his son, he lived like an avadhuta, lived underneath a tree and put stones in his mouth and would mumble, and people thought he would gone mad. But he was just an extreme kind of nonconformist, detached from the world. And gave very nice teachings to his sons. He was certainly capable. And this is the name of the fellow. There he is, standing in the midst of so many other people that look very similar to him, but a little bit distinguishing marks. And there he is at the top, camouflaging himself so that people may not know he's different than the rest. So some people live like that. They're internally, they're who they are, or more like who they are than just the conformist. And to survive, carrying on, because there's not so much now. I mean, this is a topic that I'm going to be discussing when I go to New Jersey. There's a center in Jersey City. And Jersey City, people live in Jersey City because they work in Manhattan. And this is Manhattan. The rat race. Keeping up with doesn't say rat race, but the rat race. And, go, 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 go. How much you think you're living your life and not someone else's game plan? Like somebody upstairs makes decisions, and then people need jobs, and so they do what can get them jobs. There's lots of sorry stories. I mean, I hope those of you that get your degree here at the university, you find the job market that's open. Because I'm just little crying on somebody's shoulder. One devotee I know, he has 2 children, one girl, the daughter is in college, and the second one is a sophomore in high school. And he's been working for Amazon Prime for 16 years, and they just notified him, you lost your job. We're replacing you with a robot. And they just laid off something like 16,000 employees, where they have the life that they're living and the responsibilities they're upholding. He's a devotee, but it's not like that's all that he does. But the boot and the pants, and that's it. And so, and it's it's across the board, and it's not nice. Not just Amazon, the other entities, and it's others will follow, because AI is replacing jobs. People that had jobs are not going to have jobs. Robots are going to do their jobs. And the rationale that what the employees were informed is, it's good for you. Come on. Because you just get a little brushed up in AI, and you'll find a nice job. Replacing people's jobs. It's good for the economy. It's good for our company, and it's good for the economy in general, because things will cost less and get done more efficiently, and celebrate. Anyway, the dream, the bubble, may pop or burst or not manifest. Who knows? I'm not casting some specter on all of you, but who knows? The future is uncertain. So living the dream, someone else's game plan. It is someone else's game plan, and what's our part? Are we really being individual by living like that? Then there's the social, aside from the economic or the career. Then, we have character, or ideally is to have character. And so much of our character is resting upon the relationships that we have with other people. In language of Bhagavad Gita, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kama Krodha Bijayate, which means, according to the Sangha, or the association that we keep, we develop qualities, or character, or not. So, ideal education is formation of character. This is the Vedic model. And if you have good character, you're okay, because you can handle yourself in any circumstance. If you don't have good character, then anything can happen. Whichever way the wind blows, that's which way you go. The trend's this way and the trend's that way, and good association, bad association, and without real shelter, without real core and real character, it's not a safe place. And we're all in that same space. So, socialization begins from childhood, and then as life progresses, the formation of character and qualities continue. And all of us, without exception, we want to be happy. We want to love and be loved. We want to respect others and be respected by others, but that's not always what happens, either from our side or on the receiving from others' side. And so sometimes, behaviors are just to get rewards of appreciation of others or acknowledgement from others, and that's a need. Instead of the need is actually within, if we know how to touch it or resource it. And when there's pressure to conform, can we resist it? So it takes spiritual strength, in other words. This is the questions requiring some thoughtfulness. How can I be real in a society that is not based on authenticity and genuineness? The answer is from the spiritual platform. But without that spiritual platform, it's a rough ride. What are the other options that we have? Internal desire to be genuine. So the emphasis here in this presentation is finding the real me, and then genuinely, what's the real me? And we can cosmetically paint something on that's not really me, but what's the real me? So yoga and the whole nature of the mode of goodness, it encourages introspection. And in language of Bhagavad Gita, the introspective sage is the thoughtful person. They're not just going or resisting. They're introspective. And when in introspection, there's a very nice section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you all know Srimad Bhagavatam? Yes? No? Yes. Oh, good. Okay. There's a nice section of Srimad Bhagavatam that describes in detail how, by searching introspectively, one can perceive the presence of the soul. I mean, acknowledge the presence of the soul, because the soul is something that animates matter, like artificial intelligence. Robots don't move without somebody operating them. An automobile doesn't move. Even they have self-driving automobiles. That's another thing I learned. Here's a hold on to your socks. In the city of Austin, which is the headquarters for Tesla, they have a policy, the city-wide policy, driverless cars. So taxis and Uber people are without a job. Thanks, but no thanks. Taxis and Uber drivers are no longer needed in the city of Austin. And it's a pilot, but assuming that it works, then it's going to proliferate. And a lot of people are going to be without a job because you just have to program where you want to go and just sit in that Uber that has no driver, and you get there within the speed limit, and what's it going to be like? It's kind of scary. A new world, and what's your education going to be worth? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But if Musk has anything to say about it, it's just people are displaced, and robots are going to take over. They're going to be anyway. Without going into it more, an introspective sage, according to Bhagavad Gita, learns the art of the quality of goodness of looking within, and by process of meditation, looking within, one can actually perceive the animating force within, and then by further purification, one can see things that one with the material eyes one cannot see. That is, by spiritual vision. Pandita Samadarshana, one can see. Darshana, one can see the presence of the individual soul and the supreme soul. That's elevated consciousness. And if things keep moving in the direction away from consciousness and more towards machines, it's gonna be dark. So those of you that are thoughtful, please be thoughtful. How to move in the direction of consciousness. There's a group of, for your information, you may be interested, there's a group of devotee scientists, and they have a group that's called the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, the BIHS. Got to have an acronym, right? And they have that whole, one of the things they do is they're planning seminars on consciousness. And by the way, in the field of science, what to speak of philosophy, concern about consciousness is a big deal. Because machines aren't conscious. They may be able to perform behaviors. Robots can do stuff. But where's the conscious experience of the robot or of a machine? So what's the role of consciousness? In advancement of science and technology, and advancement of philosophy and humanities and sociology, it's a growing topic. So it's a nice field. And they have seminars and symposiums. I think it's next month. There's a whole national convention in Tucson, Arizona, on the topic of consciousness, with different speakers with credential of the super credential, not just like what's going to be the impact on the quality of life in America today or the world today, but what is it? And is it important? And why is it important? And these are thoughtful people. They see where the train is going, and they want to make sure we get to the right destination and not a danger one. So that, it's philosophy isn't going to, the philosophy of consciousness is becoming more prominent. That's my message. And persons in this field of science are paying attention to that topic. Science and technology are paying attention to that topic. But, the principle is right within the teachings of yoga. Here's a young person searching for within, and eventually that person may find Supersoul. If you're interested, because of this particular audience, if you're interested in Canto 2, Chapter 2, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, you can just read it online, vedabase.com. Canto 2, Chapter 2 speaks about what you see on the screen. The process of meditation done properly and how it can lead to realization of the Supreme within by direct experience. It's nice. It's a very clear presentation. It happened with Narada Muni, as he describes to Yudhisthira in a previous life. That's what happened to him. Because Yudhisthira wanted to know, who were you before you were Narada Muni? What was your previous life? He tells the story because he knows. But one of the things that happened is he took birth as the son of a Shudra, and this and that. And the other thing happened, and he were given by some sages a process of meditation without any elevated education, just a young boy. The son of a Shudra who didn't even know who his father was. That kind of life. But he got mercy from these sages and made his life perfect. And in the course of his life, he envisioned the Supreme Person within his heart. And then that Supreme Lord appeared in front of him and spoke to him. That's pretty amazing. And that's not going to happen to everyone, but this process of yoga is accessible for anyone, everyone. But when we're living a life that's the foundation of life is material, it's hard to go there. So, therefore, the question, who am I? Do I really know myself? What makes me sure I know who I am? Because of the way society works, rare are the efforts to understand one's true identity. Not the soul. Constantly inquiring and discarding relationships, a lifestyle based on materialistic, consumer-like conception of life. That's the world in which we live. I just listened to a seminar, and maybe if you're interested, Sri Radhika has the link, or Munajivan has the link. A seminar given in San Jose on the study of Shastra. And one of the comments made by the person who was the speaker, he's a professor, but he spoke to a devotee audience because that's what he does. He's a devotee professor. And our reading of scripture is often consumer-like. Consumer-like in the sense that, what am I going to get out of this? What's in it for me? And so we're reading in that consciousness, as opposed to, this is part of his talk, a big part of his talk, as opposed to, there's an author, I'm reading his book because I have respect, like Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. What's the message that he wants to pass on to me? Consider the speaker or the author and the gift that they want to give, as opposed to something that you can take with you and own. The consumer approach as opposed to the receiver approach from a gifted person. It's a very different approach, very different way of receiving wisdom. And one who has that approach in life can receive. When the heart is open, when you learn, like this young boy, of introspection, the heart can become more open. And when you hear something that it may touch your heart, and when it touches your heart, it's going to stay with you far more substantially than if it was just the consumer approach. Like, practically speaking, all the things that you learn in the course of your years of education here at the university, how much of you going to remember later? Honest. Some of it. Okay, some of it. How much of it? That there's training and you learn something about learning and that consumer approach of how to learn stuff, and you become good at it, and you can become, a successful career person, maybe. Depends. But the education that's received for spiritual particularly, but even material, received from, let's just say, I went to a dermatologist today. I haven't been to a doctor in a long time. I thought it was time. I got an irritation on my left arm, and it was bothering me. So somebody suggested, so I went. And nice lady, Indian lady, and busy, and how many years of study did she do to become a dermatologist? No, probably quite the same as almost anybody else that does some other specialist, whatever that field of specialization is. And that my guess is more the discipline that she underwent to get to that position of having an MD is with her, more so than the details that she learned in the course of getting there. So building some stamina and some staunchness, but that's like what are you going to get from your education experience, as opposed to, you probably all had the experience, I've had the experience of having a teacher that wasn't just teaching, wasn't just information passing, but they were a very genuine person and very caring person, very gifted person, able to share what was inside them with you. And it was that relationship. There's two particular persons. One particular person is just outstanding. I'll never forget the person. I'll never forget what I learned from that person. It stuck and went in, it touched, and it's still with me. And that person was a Taoist. I didn't know that till later. A Taoist means go with the flow. That was kind of his philosophy. And strangely enough, that particular person gave me my first Bhagavad Gita. I didn't know what inspired that, and I didn't know what Bhagavad Gita was, but I liked him, so I walked around with the Bhagavad Gita. Edgerton, an American professor studying Bhagavad Gita that didn't understand Bhagavad Gita. He knew Sanskrit, so he made a translation of Bhagavad Gita, but he didn't know what the message. He didn't have this. He had the commercial kind, consumer-like kind, where the book was just a way to earn a living. And he was, made a translation. So here we are. See that fellow in the middle? That's us. On the left side, that's birth, and the right side, that's death, and in between, that's life. And in between, we're asking this question: who am I? What is the standard of true happiness? What's my personal purpose in life? Am I living the life of others' expectations? How do I solve the real problems of life? For that matter, what are the real problems of life? It's in Bhagavad Gita. Four things. Birth, death, disease, old age. Jama, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Dukkha, distress. Dukkha, doshanu, darshanam. A learned person sees these are the four problems. And if I've lived my life without knowing what the problems, what to speak of solving the problems, something's wrong with that picture. So what to do? And there's a system. Am I material or spiritual? If I'm spiritual, what's the overall spiritual reality I'm part of? That's a good question. So Bhagavad Gita has answers. Analyze our web of connections and see if they're genuine. False sense of connection obscures real identity, leading to no authenticity. Now, this is modern language to help someone that take a look at Bhagavad Gita in a different way than a commercial way or a consumer type of way. To find yourself. When I got that Bhagavad Gita from this philosophy professor, the meaningfulness of the book was the person who gave me the book, because I couldn't even pronounce the title. What to speak of the meaning of what's inside. And they'll tell the rest of the story. So I'm carrying this Bhagavad Gita around with me. And then I had another friend who's a sociology master's degree student, and he had a big library. He said, "Hey, I've got a different version. You want my version? Here's my version." So now I have two Bhagavad Gitas. Hadn't read either of them. And I thought, gosh, if there's two, there's probably more. So I went to the library, the university library, and found 5 additional copies. So now I have 7 Bhagavad Gitas. And I'm just curious what's inside this book I can't even pronounce the name of. So I started reading them, and I came to 2 conclusions. One is, I don't understand it. And I don't understand it because the people that translated also didn't understand it. I learned that later. And the person who gave it to me, I thought it was a book of poetry because he used to read poetry. His own, from his heart, kind of expressions of life and reality and things. So, but it wasn't a book of poetry. So some time passed and somebody gave me this Bhagavad Gita as it is. I started reading it, and I found it was real easy to understand. And I was puzzled. How come this is easy and the other ones I couldn't understand at all? But I liked it, so I kept reading it, and then I started to understand how the others were ununderstandable because they were just academic. Using a flashlight to find the sun. That's not how you find the sun. The sun is self-luminous. And you receive the light through disciplic succession, and there it is. It was very clear. But without that disciplic succession method, it was scholarship and it was gobbledygook. It wasn't clear at all. Something, but it wasn't clear at all. And 7 different versions of not clear. All one book. And it was a skinny book. It didn't have commentary, just translation. Phew. So Bhagavad Gita is a system, a science, to help people make a connection with who they really are. Connection with transcendence, that means the source of everything. Limited conceptions will not satisfy the need for connectivity. This is rebellious kind of language. Pierce the wall and wrestle the big questions in life. That's what Bhagavad Gita does. Real individuality is not possible in a material conception of life because it's not who we are. Now, all of what I'm saying, there's a little. I meant to insert it in this presentation, and I didn't. But I think at the end, I'll just. There's a fellow that doesn't look at all like I look like, but he says the same thing that I'm saying. It's a TikTok interview, and it's like with the scruffy beard. He's an American actor, saying the same things. So that his truths aren't just from Indian background. This is an American guy saying the same things, based upon statistics of what science says and what practical experience of life says. Serenity and peace and tranquility come from understanding we're part of something that's much bigger than all of us. And without that, don't make the mistake of going through your educational career and that's it. And then what's on the other side, that's it. And, just, I wish you to not make that same mistake because some people do that, identifying with matter. Reality begins with understanding, am I this body or something other than this body? Chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. Sankhya philosophy. Am I material or am I spiritual? This is you see at the bottom, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So that's an illustration showing the lower modes of nature and going up to and the thoughtful persons and then the spiritual realm. That thoughtful persons can traverse that path. If I'm spiritual, how do I act with spiritual connectivity? Here's Albert Einstein. You can never solve a problem on the level on which it was created. Brilliant, huh? Sometimes he gets a home run. Okay, so a little graphic, and I'm gonna finish and see if there's some discussion. This is an eggshell, and from the inside of the eggshell, there's some light coming out. That means, to me, it's consciousness extends beyond the body, and what's within the body is where the seat of consciousness. And then consciousness extends through senses. And the gradual evolution of higher consciousness is more and more and more. The scope of the spreading of consciousness goes beyond. And eventually, that's the stage of liberation where the seat of consciousness is no longer confined to the body. That's moksha or liberation. And then in that moksha or liberation stage, what is that source of light do? What do we do in the liberated state? It depends upon the path that you follow. But if the path that you follow is the path of what souls naturally do, then you continue serving the Supreme. Engage in activity in relation to the Supreme. That's the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Wisdom begins with understanding the spirit self, the animating the body and the mind, so that the source of life within begins is to understand that what that is. All living entities are connected to the same source. Of course, that's Krishna and the universal form, but the form of the universe has a source. That's Krishna. Bhakti Yoga, how we act in relationship with the ultimate connection. Chapter, there's a verse at the end of the structure of Bhagavad Gita goes, it's called the Yoga Ladder. In the beginning, Sankhya, beginning of chapter 2. When Krishna describes you're not the body, you belong to the category of spirit. And then when that becomes clear, then comes how do you act in that consciousness? That's a practical question. So then he describes Buddhi Yoga. That's how chapter 2 is divided. And when there's to clarify further about Buddhi Yoga, there needs to be then detachment from the fruits of your work, not detachment from work. Karma Yoga, detachment from the fruits of work. Work without attachment to the fruits of work. And as that becomes matured, then access to further further understandings of the self, or Gyan Yoga, then Dhyan Yoga, the process of meditation. So now we're at the end of chapter 6. When Krishna describes Dhyan Yoga to Arjuna, Arjuna says, I can't do that. too difficult. So Krishna then gives it a version that's not, it's simpler, and it's also very natural. And that's the bhakti process. That's how chapter 6 ends. And it's mind absorbed in me, what the mind does, and what the body does, always engaged in my service. Such a person is the topmost yogi. And now I'm going to describe to you how to do it. So that's what follows. So by following that network of making the connection with Krishna, the ultimate connection, that's what bhakti yoga is. Now, the photograph is my spiritual master, and who I met at the university that I was attending, and then eventually became his initiated disciple, and I've been living my life and following him. But, seated here are two that are not, they're not living a renounced life like I'm living, but, the same teachings and different, similar lifestyle of a Krishna-centered life. So the requirement is not, as he gave, by example, the life of a sannyasi, or that I'm living, but living in the world, but in full connection with the personality of Godhead. Here's another Albert Einstein quote. This is a nice one. The one who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The one who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been. That's a nice place. Look at that. Conformity is like poison to your soul. So that's the end of a little talk. I kind of meandered all over the place, but that's okay. You're still here. Any discussion or thoughts that you'd like to share? And our dear friends who came a little bit late, thank you for coming. You probably had some other stuff you were up to, right? But you came. Good. Comments or questions?
I'm going to ask something, Raj.
Yeah.
Can I use your example of the right? So her name is Sai, and a few weeks ago she shared with us that her desire for this year, a goal that she'd like to pursue, is the goal of getting to know yourself more. So the thought that I had as a question, maybe you can adjust it, is what are some steps to head towards trying to find out and being more connected to that question I'm trying to answer, which is, who am I? Right? So what would you recommend are some of the first initial steps for someone with that thought process?
Few initial steps. Keep asking the question. Who am I? Any question, excuse me, any question that's important and you don't get an answer right away, don't worry about getting the answer right away, because you don't get an A in your report card because you got an answer right away. But what you want is the answer, or who you really are, and that's not quick. So there's a biblical saying, seek and ye shall find. Same idea. Stay with it. The inquisitive, or in Sanskrit, in Vedanta Sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. You familiar? Ataha means now. Brahma Jigyasa. Jigyasa means inquisitive. Ask about Brahman. Now, the commentaries all go bananas about what now means. Ataha. That means, different things to different commentators. but the human form of life. Because below human form of life, people don't ask that question, or living entities don't have the capacity. Coming to the human form of life, life is meant to ask and get an answer. And it doesn't come easy. So my first advice, keep asking. And then as you ask, somebody, you can hit you in the head, but you may not see it or feel it or recognize it unless you're asking the question. But if you're asking the question, you're more likely to get the answer than if you're not asking the question. Second, wisdom literature. Wisdom literature is a generic term. Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedas they reveal the absolute truth. You're part and parcel of that which is the source of everything. So what's that? And that tells you something about who you are. You're part of something much greater. And what's that something much greater? Tells you something about who you are, because you're part. So they're not separate questions, but to discover who you are requires some understanding of where everything is coming from.
So before I explore who I am, is it fair to evaluate or find out what do I want?
What you want, pardon me, what you want, generally speaking, is heavily materially overcoded.
At this stage of my life, but when I explore who I am, then my terms of what I want.
You go if you ask the what I want, you're going to stay on the surface. You have to go more deep, and the more deep doesn't get a quick answer. So I'm responding to your question. Is it okay to ask what do I want? You can do that if you choose, but it's going to stay cosmetic or superficial. It's going to, the modes of material nature are going to pull and push, and that's not who you are. Because the modes of nature keep changing, and there's something inside that's unchanging. Persistence of identity is continuing. One time, you're a little girl, and now you're not a little girl anymore. But sometimes you're going to be an old lady, and at different stages, there's different needs. What does a little girl want? She wants to play, etc. So it's not what I want. It's who am I? The fundamental, the deeper question. And it's not as easy, but it's just the right question. So the first is keep asking. Second is go to wisdom literature or authoritative texts that are from infallible sources. That's a big qualification. So the personality of Godhead Krishna is an infallible source. Or the Vedas come from the breathing of Narayana. So the Vedas and text pursuant to the Vedic texts, that's Vedic. That's an infallible source of wisdom. And then how am I going to understand? It's not easy to understand. Then I need a teacher, because that's what the Vedas teach. You need a teacher to explain and reveal. And then when you get the real, just like I was saying, I read 7 translations of Bhagavad Gita, and I realized this isn't Bhagavad Gita. And I was just a kid, an American kid growing up, didn't even know nothing about nothing. But it's not real. And when I came across something that was real, it's like, the bunch of electric cables on the floor, and one of them's plugged into the socket. Okay, that one's live. I experience it directly. So same, one can make that connection through disciplic succession, and then the experience is different. Yeah. So find teachers that have the teachings from infallible sources. And it'll take a while to find such teachers and teachings, and then even what they're saying, let it go deep inside. But once that question resonates, then you're on the right track. Then it can start to grow. It's like a seed, and the seed can fructify and grow and grow and grow, and then you're headed on the right course.
Makes sense.
I'm waiting for the but.
There's no buts.
Yeah, but
Yeah. So one of the starting point of finding my authentic self is turning back on who I'm supposed to be. So started saying no to a lot of things.
I know about that one.
So,
but that the saying no to a lot of things is dependent upon saying a big yes to the most important thing.
Yeah.
And if I don't make a big yes, then I'm being pushed and pulled by so many things. And that's my life. And so that's a way to live life, but it's not what real life is. Let me say the same thing in a different way. One of those persons who is a writer, an acharya, that has touch with the absolute truth, his name is Jiva Goswami. Jiva, Jiva, living entity, Jiva. So he wrote 4 translations on Srimad Bhagavatam, and one of those 4 is called the Sandarbhas, and the first one of the 4 Sandarbhas is called Tattva Sandarbha. And the first half of Tattva Sandarbha is explaining how you're going to know anything. How are you going to know anything? That's a good question. And then I'm going to quickly, because there's details and details, very, very meticulous, but commonly there's 3. Sense perception, seeing is believing, etc. Reason and logic, like, I can't see the fan, but I can hear the fan. So I can infer, by inference and logic, there's a heating system or an air conditioning system. There's a blower up there somewhere. I don't know. It may be another sound. Who knows? But I can infer that's what's going on here. Because it's cold outside and it's reasonable temperature inside, so it's probably warm air. This is reason. It's so perception of the senses, reason and logic, and then a third is sound. Like the university. You go to the university to get lessons because you can read a book, but it's not the same as sitting in a classroom and hearing a learned person explain whatever it is that you're studying. So by sound. And then there's material sound and then there's spiritual sound. So Tattva Sandarbha, I'm inclined, I don't know what to do. Because you're serious about what you're wanting to do, and I could cut and paste, sections from Tattva Sandarbha that you'll go, wow, this is true, or at least I'd like to understand it better, because it seems like there's some good wisdom here to answer the question I'm asking. Because most people don't even, sorry to say, but they don't even ask the question. They're too busy being successful or trying to be successful. Fulfilling others' expectations and my own, material expectations without pausing enough to look inside. And so I think I can do that. I'm busy. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but I'd like to do that. Some sections, so you get like a flavor of how he addresses the topic of how do you know. Who do you know? How do you know who you are? And how do you know the source of everything? How do you know that it's beyond your senses and beyond your reasoning? Lots of people are reasoning this and that. They have come up with different conclusions. And then this one changes to that one and that one changes to another one and you get head spins. So it's not conclusive. Speculation and inference is not conclusive. So Shabda, that's the third sound. And Aparusheya Shabda, the sound that's from an infallible source. That's best. Okay. More or you're okay? It's good for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. It's not a but it's like an extension to what the concept that you have.
Okay.
So, in the process of understanding or learning or exploring who I am or who we are, we will, of course, like the journey and it will be interesting. But, okay. How do we realize that we found out or how do we validate?
Okay. Good. I gotta give 3 answers quick. There's symptoms. The Sanskrit word is lakshana. You've heard lakshana, characteristics, lakshana. So in Bhagavad Gita, there are verses that describe the characteristics of one who has realized the self. Here's one such verse. There's several in Bhagavad Gita. Na sojati na kangsati. Neither hankering nor lamenting. That is, I'm self-satisfied. Everything I need is within because that's me. Nashojati nakangsati. Samak sarveshu buddheshu. Seeing all living entities equally. Seeing all living entities equally doesn't mean you embrace a tiger. You behave differently according to coverings, but you see beneath the covering, there's the animating force of life. Supposing, someone treats me nicely. They're my friend. Someone treats me nasty. They're my enemy. So friend and enemy. That's the material life. And it's one who's self-realized doesn't have that experience. They can see that here's a nasty person. I'll keep a safe distance because they're a nasty person. They're very mean and cruel, and I've seen them do it to others, and they've done it to me too. So I keep a safe distance from that person. But I don't consider that person enemy because inside there's a soul, and probably inside that soul there's some hurt somewhere. And because of that hurt, they're behaving or speaking in ways that's harsh. So let me acknowledge where that hurt is, but not hate the person. Dvesha, raga, dvesha. No, that's on the material side. So when that dials down, mad bhaktim labhate param. That's the final. This Bhagavad Gita verse. That person, such a person, is situated in loving service to the Supreme, to Krishna. Mad bhaktim labhate param. The supreme occupation, paradharma. That's the symptom. And they're consistent, not sometimes. So that's another. Over time, they have control of their senses and their mind. There's maybe disturbances to the mind and disturbances to the senses, like it got really cold for a while, like super cold. What are you going to do? You bundle up. That's what you're going to do. And then after some time, it's the weather changes. So you tolerate tongues to tick. So there's symptoms, lakshana, of someone who's practicing and someone they've achieved that connection. So then there's another place. You can look it up later because you like to research things. Chapter 13, verses 8 through 12. Because the beginning of chapter 13, there's questions, and that's an answer to one of the questions. One of the questions, what is knowledge? And you read those 19 items that are items of knowledge, and they're qualities. A person that has knowledge has qualities. Amanitvam adambitvam, that's how it starts. Humility and pridelessness. Those are characteristics of someone who is, the bell rang. They realized who they really are. They're humble. They're very tiny. And there's no pride. If you conversely find someone that's very smart, and often they're very proud, or at least reasonably proud. It's easy. Get smart and do well and expect people to recognize. And when that's not there, that's a symptom. So that there are places in Bhagavad Gita that give descriptions of the symptoms of a self-realized soul. And you can evaluate yourself, like anger or lust or greed or something. The impurities, if they by circumstance they're prompted, then you're not there yet. And to the degree that they become diminished, you're on the right track. And satisfied within. Okay? It's a very simple example. Another way to answer your question. When you're eating, someone doesn't have to tell you you've eaten enough. You can tell them. No thanks. No, take some more vegetable or some more chapati or some more, how about some sabji or how about some ice cream or, I'm full. That's another symptom. And material necessities become reduced. Necessities, but reduced. That's another symptom. No, we're all different, so some person's necessities are way over there and some persons are way over there. But reduced. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? I think we're done. Are we done?
So, you're talking about like a sattva nature and somehow like how we can attain the sattva guna.
How you can attain what?
Sattva guna.
Sattva. Sattva.
Yeah.
How we can attain sattva?
Yeah.
By associating with persons who are sattva.
Okay.
That answer is right in Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
Sangat sanjayate kama. Sangha, through association with those that have that quality, that becomes your quality. For example, how does someone become a drunkard? They hang out with people that drink a lot and go to bars and they become a drunkard. They may have been a nice fellow, but they become a drunkard by association. Or the university. Or, mode of goodness. Associate with people that are. So then also back to like his question, there's characteristics of the mode of goodness. truthfulness, simplicity, honesty. These are characteristics of someone in the mode of goodness. So if I want the mode of goodness, associate with people in the mode of goodness, sattva, and recognize what those qualities are and aspire to become like that. And serve those people that are in the quality of goodness. That the medium of service is very important. And that's association. But then you're receiving from them that gift which they're able to give. And a person in the mode of goodness, when someone is very kindly assisting them in whatever it is that's going on, they feel something. Then they show their affection. Just like that's what happened with Narada. Yeah, I was telling that story. He was a little boy, the son of a Sudra. He was cursed to take that birth, etc., etc., etc. But by association with the sadhus, he was a gentle little boy, and they showed their kindness to him naturally. And they gave him and gave him and gave him wisdom, and they gave him mantra, and yeah.
I know.
Okay. By association, the short answer. Sangha. We develop qualities like those with whom we associate. Bhagavad Gita.
But I have one more question.
I thought so. That's why I paused.
So we need to leave aham, like I am, I know, I know things.
Good.
So should I need to leave that, or
No.
should I need to
And you use it.
have-
If it's actual knowledge, there's things that we think we know, but we don't really know. But if it's actual knowledge, then you use that in the service of the source from which all knowledge comes. So, supposing I got $100 in my pocket, I don't. But supposing I had, then I should use it. I don't trash it. Something of value. Use it in the service to the source of everything. And how exactly to do that, let me be thoughtful and take guidance from people who are wise in scripture and things, and to the $100 program with so things that with gifts. We've been given something. So you've got one of your gifts is knowledge. Make sure it's knowledge and not ignorance, and offer it to the Supreme.
I have one more.
Go ahead. I like your nice questions. What's your third one?
So when I'm sharing my knowledge, so I'm showing off things like I know something,
Okay.
but
But-
it is not a simplicity when it comes to like showing off. Is not a simplicity according. I don't understand the difference between simplicity and showing off.
Okay.
So when I know things, so can I express that
Yeah.
I know, or should I need to?
No, you don't have to hide it under your coat.
Yeah.
But the way in which you show, reorient the purpose for which you're showing. Align the purpose that Krishna should be pleased. Not you should be pleased, or you should be recognized for you knowing something. When Krishna smiles, you've done the right thing. And otherwise, it's showing off. Because if the consciousness is, say it again, if the consciousness of serving the Supreme is missing, then who is it that's being pleased? Me. I'm at the center. If I'm not at the center, what's at the center? The Supreme. And if the Supreme is at the center, the Supreme should be pleased. That's the servant and master. What's pleasing to the master, that's what the servant does. Supposing I don't see myself as servant, then I'm at the center. My senses and my mind and my ego, they're at the center. Supposing I have a master, he's to be pleased. That's it. Supposing I'm not there yet. Most of us aren't there yet. So then we align ourselves in service to those who are there in ways that we can regulate that tendency to be a show off and instead be, in the direction of using things in the service to the Supreme, who's the source. Because from that source, there's a lot more things that can come, a zillion billion more things. But am I deserving to receive it? And if I'm not receiving, then it's blocking that gift. But who's to be pleased? That's the key. So let's assume that you're like the rest of us, you're a conditioned soul. So there's probably something you wouldn't be here if there wasn't some idea of Krishna's in your life. You'd be off doing something else. So there's something there. Dial it up and dial the other. By doing so, you make the light brighter, the darkness is dissipated. So move in that direction. And in the association, like this other question, in the association of those that are like that. That's what this group is meant to do. And go in the direction of dialing Krishna up. That dials the darkness down. There's a mix, most likely. Dial up the Krishna bhakti. That Krishna should be pleased. Simple. One more. All right.
We would love to continue this